The Assistant Dean of Faculty of Business in City University. He arrived in Macau in November last year, and he was also the former Vice President of the Foundation of Science and Technology of Portugal, and he has been a pioneer on the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Portugal for many years. So, José Paulo, thank you very much for being here tonight with us. And our second distinguished guest, Paulo Andrés. Paulo Andrés is a renowned angel investor, and he's the President Emeritus of the European Business Angel Networks, where he was president a few years ago. And he also the author of a bestseller book in Amazon that is going to be launched very soon, published by Forbes, which is Zero Risk Startup, that we will talk about a little bit later today. So let me put in context. So what we are going to talk today is about, startups, tech startups boom. So these companies, that have tremendous growth and that are using technology innovation and are disrupting traditional businesses. This is the topic about what we are talking today. As I mentioned early this morning, when we look globally at these new companies, they represent today 11.5 trillion US dollars, approximately 15% of global GDP is linked to these startups. And they are growing. Two times faster in the last 15 years when we look at the global GDP. And it's said from the United Nations that in 2030 these startups will represent 30% of global GDP. And 2030 is tomorrow. So it's really exponential growth, and this is due to technology. Software is now everywhere, and this is what differentiates startups from other traditional companies, is the use of technology, the growth, and the scale very fast of these companies. So I will start the first question to José Paulo, and I think you prepare slides to respond to these questions. So, José Paulo, since you also have been the former vice president of the Foundation of Science and Technology in Portugal, so over the past 10 years, Portugal has moved from the bottom end of most European entrepreneurship rankings to being near the top. Could you please tell us about the evolution of innovation technology in Portugal in this area? So, just a forward to see what happened in Portugal. You can use here the pointer, and you can just go forward. So, yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the Foundation to Rui Cunha for the privilege of being here. I will be brief because we have a guest invitee, guest speaker who has many relevant topics to discuss with us. And of course, I'd like to thank Marco for the introduction and for the organization of all these events that are very important. I would like just to give a very brief overview of the last years of the evolution of science, technology, and the companies that stem from investment in science and technology in Portugal. And for that, I would like to share some information. And basically, the point is that without capital, it is not possible to have innovation. So business that is brought to the marketplace. So I would like just to give some very simple ideas about this. In Portugal, the science was the most relevant person in science. In Portugal is the late Minister of Science, Mariano Gago. the rectors in the academia didn't like him entirely because he decided to create science separated from academia. That was very bold. So, as I come more from the side of the academia itself, I remember my rector being a bit critical of him, but he was absolutely fundamental in bringing capital to funding research units. Portugal created about 300 research units in many different fields. Some excel in international terms, and as you can see, the funding was very low in the late 90s, and then it went up. So the red line is about private funding for research in Portugal, at the company level mostly, and the blue line is about public funds, both from the Portuguese government and from the European Union. And of course, Manuel Heitor, with whom I worked, was the next science minister and pursued the same effort in a very clear way. So we have here the general pattern of these science research units, which cover many different fields, from the STEM areas, but also from social sciences and other areas. And we have also two initiatives. Collabs are like the catapult model in the UK. So they are a way of having research units, of having municipalities, of having companies, private firms that altogether do collaborate in these collabs. It's also like a bit like a Fraunhofer model of research. And you can see that they are associated to research on maritime issues, on the blue economy, but also in many other forests and so on. The interior is, of course, less active because it has also less universities over there, but it covers all the areas. Another very important tool of this architecture is the interface technological centers, Centro de Interface Tecnológico, which are very important also in bringing together research. For instance, the shoe industry in Portugal used to be very backward just a few years ago. And now Portugal produces the second most valuable shoes in the world, immediately after Italy. So this is very much due to the research that was carried out in these centers. Another evidence of this is how Portugal became a net exporter of technology, while we have always been a net importer. So all this has changed a lot. Just to finalize, a very brief note. There are 10 Portuguese unicorns identified recently in 2022. 9 are incorporated in the United States and 1 in the UK. Why are they all incorporated outside of Portugal? So no statistics will consider them as Portuguese unicorns, except this journal, which is Inventiva, published in English, that really considers all these unicorns. And you can see that from year 2001 to 2009, we had 3, then 2 in the next 5 years, 2 in the next 5 years, and 3 already in this short period between 20 and 22. I will not go into much detail. This is on healthcare, Sword Health. The next one is Salt Pay, its payment mechanisms, which is also a very popular area. Then we have TalkDesk for centers for automatic communication with clients. Farfetch, which at once was valued at 26 billion US dollars. It has gone bust already. It has been bought by a Korean company. But OutSystem is perhaps the most valuable now, about close to 10 billion. Feedzai, which is a fantastic company on cybersecurity, remote, also for remote work. Anchorage, which was more with digital money and that kind of things. And Unbubble, which has a very interesting model on combining artificial intelligence with dealing with over 100,000 translators all over the world for every language that pair of languages that you may need. Sensei, also an interesting company in technology, in high technology. So these are the key unicorns, but none is based in Portugal.
Based
in Portugal.
Later, maybe we can talk about.
Okay. So the core idea is that investment in science pays, but there is something lacking in Portugal, which is then the funding of companies that require large amounts of capital. But for the base, science has evolved. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. I forgot to mention something. We want this talk to be as much interactive possible, so I forgot to mention that. So if you have any questions that you want to, to ask during the talk, feel free. We don't need to wait until the end of the talk to ask the question. So feel free to. Paulo Andrés, so taking these notes from José Paulo Esperança, what is your view? I mean, the Web Summit, don't you think also the Web Summit in 2017 also made something acceleration about the buzz about Portugal and all this innovation happening in Lisbon? And also related to the unicorns, did some of your Business Angel Association, did they participate in terms of investment in one of these rounds here? If you can share with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for Fundação Rui Cunha to be here. In terms of Web Summit, Web Summit helped a lot in terms of the perception of people about the reality of the Portuguese market. In terms of the real impact of the Web Summit, of course, it helped a lot in terms of some Portuguese startups to be more visible, and I think it's positive that Web Summit is in Portugal. In terms of the unicorns, I was the second investor in Sword Technologies, this company that I was a very early stage. Virgilio Bento is a fantastic entrepreneur. And the question why the company is in US, so this is one of the companies that is in US. I think that it's very important when the companies want to reach a very large scale. They have the networks and they have the investors to support the development. And one of the key things for Sword is to enter in the US market. And to enter in the US market is difficult to have Portuguese investors, but with international investors based in US, it's very easy to reach the US market. And so it was a very easy decision at that time to open the company in US and to attract investors, because the US investors, due to several situations, they don't like to invest in Portugal, in a Portuguese company because of the legal stuff. They don't understand the Portuguese language, etc. It gives a lot of work, so it's not an issue. However, I'd like to talk about is the unicorns, and sometimes countries look just to create the unicorns, and they forget the 99.5% of the rest of the companies, which are the ones that create jobs. Probably unicorns create a lot of visibility, but unicorns is about valuation. And I always tell entrepreneurs, look, I see that valuation is very important for you, so I have a solution for you. Do you want to become a unicorn tomorrow? I can do that. It's not a problem. I invest 0.0001% in the company. I put there 200,000 euros. Based on the calculation, you are a unicorn. This is fine. It's interesting for you.
Maybe for the audience, unicorns, if you can just specify for
so
them.
He introduced, so he needs to explain.
Exactly.
So he created a problem. Now it's his time to...
Because there may be some people in the audience that are not familiar with the term unicorn.
Now it's your time to clean the stuff.
Companies that in a short period reach the valuation through these metrics, because are always private metrics, of 1,000 million US dollars. So companies that after a few years are worth 1,000 million.
In English we can say 1 billion.
Yes.
In Portuguese, no.
Yeah.
So investors.
But I agree with that should not be the main goal.
So we were talking about investments, right? I mean, in this particular niche market of startups, the investors are not traditional investment entities, you know, like banks, etc. So we have special entities that are really that have the know-how to invest in these startups. And I would like for the audience as well, if you can. So we have the business angels, and you represent a very large network in Europe. So if you can also tell us, you know, the difference between venture capital, which is a very big group that invests in these startups, and business angels, maybe define the two and the big difference between the two.
So basically, the difference is business angels are individuals that decide to invest their own money, while venture capitalists are funds that manage third parties' money. So these VC funds, they collect money from investors called limited partners. And then the GP, the global, the general partner, decides which investments will be done, and of course tries to give return to these limited partners. The limited partners are off ends, so they are more passive investors. They don't add value, while angel investors tend to support entrepreneurs in terms of mentorship, in terms of networking as well. And many times I say psychotherapists, because despite they are not, they don't have the license to become psychotherapists. The roller coaster of entrepreneurial life is huge. Sometimes they expect to conquer the world, then they receive a no from a client and they get hugely depressed. Then they get interest from a big client, they are all again in the top of the world. And then the client test fails and they are depressed as well. I usually say they are kind of bipolar because of these changes of mindset and humor. And the business angel many times is the one there holding things and trying to tell the entrepreneur, look, you should not give up now. Because of this, fix it. I'm going to help you. Together we can do it. And many times entrepreneurs do not give up just because a business angel is there in the worst moments. And the government cannot do this. The government is not there to support the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur cannot pick the phone and talk with the government. You know?
Is there also a difference when we compare early stage versus scale up startups? Usually business angels are more, the tickets are not as larger as venture capital, so they tend to invest in more early, if you can.
Yeah, you are correct. So angel investors tend to invest smaller tickets. In Europe, the average ticket per investor per deal is $25,000. But what happened is the angel investors, they evolved a lot and they became they started creating syndicates. So, and you see now syndicates in Europe and in US where you have 20, 30. I just participated in a syndicate in New York City where there are 20 angel investors there. And because we as angel investors pull out of our money, so we can invest in more later stage companies. So it's not that angel investors are only for pre-seed companies, so pre-revenue companies. We are also investing in scale-ups as well.
Okay. Zé Paulo, going back to your slides, so you talk about this emergence of science and technology, creating this. Can you also talk a little bit about other policies that have been put in place? I think you also had prepared a slide on this.
Perhaps worth mentioning that in the Portuguese case there were also some fiscal support. So for expense that is based, there is a model led by ANI, Agência Nacional de Inovação, that in which expenditure in research and development can be can be amplified, can be, well, it's registered as 130 or 150% for tax purposes, so it provides tax reduction. That's also a possibility. But there are some mechanisms for supporting companies at an early, research at an early stage, grants, and both Portuguese and European, and that is very important before, of course, the companies are formed, are constituted, and the pre-revenue situations do require grants at that stage. But later, it has to be an ecosystem that is more developed, more sophisticated, in which business angels also play a role. And of course, it's knowledge on top of capital, because they bring capital and they bring knowledge, they bring networking, they bring relations, and sometimes they cool down a little bit the entrepreneur, because he or she needs some help also in that front, because they don't have much business experience in many cases.
So this part is very interesting. Maybe we can go deep down and give an example of a successful startup maybe you invested in, and give examples on how you help them, or your consortium of business angel, how giving examples, concrete examples, if you can share with us of some of startups you invested in.
I'd like just to start because of the tax breaks, and one of the tax breaks mechanisms that the government recently created some years is to allow corporate companies in Portugal, if they invest in VC funds that invest in research, they are able to deduct 82.5% on their tax. Corporate tax, 82.5%. It's huge. So in the last 2-3 years, more than 1 billion euros was raised in VC funds to invest in companies that have a huge research expenditure, and also with golden visa. So if foreigners want to have access to the golden visa, to have access to have a passport, a Portuguese passport, they can also invest in a fund, and they also get this golden visa. And this fund invests in these companies. So there are a lot of mechanisms that can be done by governments, and of course here in Macau you don't have so much tax issues. So tax breaks probably will not work here, but many other governments it can work. In terms of companies, one is Sword. So you mentioned Sword Technologies. It was a very early stage company. Pre-revenue, we invested in the company, and it became a unicorn. And we used that investment that we did in Sword was with a co-investment with the state. So because the company was so early stage that we decided, okay, let's use this co-investment. So we invested 1/3, and the government invested 2/3 at that moment into Sword. And so it was an instrument, private investors plus the government money that supported Sword, and others as well that are there also were with support of with the government. For instance, Fidzai. I was one of the co-shareholders of Novabaz, which is listed in the stock market in the Euronext. So we did IPO in year 2000, and one of the investments that Novabaz Capital did is in Fidzai, together with the government as well. So together with the co-investment and several other investors there in Fidzai also had money from the government. So this is a way to foster innovation and support companies smartly.
Okay, taking this as an example, this co-investment examples that you give, and now going back here to the region, to Macau, the Great Bay Area, and Hengqin, what do you think could be the best practices that could be implemented here in the region to and Macau being a platform, right, between China and Portuguese-speaking countries, not only in traditional business but also on this case of innovation and startups. What best practices you think could be implemented here that that will boost here the ecosystem?
For me or for him?
For both of you.
Okay, then you can start.
Okay, so just a very brief reflection about that. I think that an important thing would be that capital, private capital from people with some savings and some with business experience could provide a diversification of investments. So business angels are very often people that have some capital available. Also, maybe for instance, for retired people, it's interesting to be in touch, in contact with entrepreneurs and share some of their experience. So indeed, there are so many business opportunities in the Greater Bay Area, just to start with, at a stone throw distance, that indeed capital could be very useful in that respect. And there are very active people. So I think that the 9-to-9 competition, we see so much talent and so many creative ideas that probably don't move forward for lack of capital. And there are people who have capital and don't know what to do with it. So indeed, it's very good to bring this together. This is the core of finance. There is no shortage of capital. There is no shortage of ideas. We need to create mechanisms so that one meets the other. And I think business angels can play a great role in that.
I don't agree that here in Macau there are no solutions to invest money. There are so many casinos, so you just go there and you put the money there, so to deploy the money. So the thing that governments need to understand, and I see a lot of governments, and I'm not talking about here China, because I don't have the full context and I don't know all the initiatives, but I know very well Europe, is that the governments don't understand the problem of startups and the problem of startups together for the investors. Why investors do not invest in the startups? I asked this question to the governments, and the governments don't know the answer correctly. And it's not because there is no money. There is excessive money in the market. There is excess of money in the market. So if there is excess money of the market and entrepreneurs are so great with so great ideas, what's missing? And the missing factor is there is too much risk. There is too much risk. And entrepreneurs say, no, why, which risk? I have a PhD, I have done this. And entrepreneurs don't understand that the issue is not what they think. The issue is what is the perceived risk from the investor perspective, because people take decisions not based on the real risk, but based on their perceived risk. So, if the governments understand that the risk is the central point that is preventing investors from investing in startups, what is the role of the government? Is to de-risk the investment and to help the entrepreneurs to de-risk the company. And this can be done through a lot of things, through a lot of ways. And yesterday I was giving this lecture in the City University. You appreciate it. It was very, very funny with a lot of students talking a lot, and a lot of students with some excuses. And I like to have people giving excuses, because I like to challenge them with those excuses. So I think the government can help entrepreneurs, for instance, to test technologies, to facilitate and to open the universities to the entrepreneurs. For instance, to create some incentives for researchers to become entrepreneurs. In Europe, what we see is if a researcher wants to progress in the career, if he creates a startup, he's dead. He's not going to go in the career. But if he publishes 10 papers that nobody reads, then he progresses in the career. And so what is the incentive for that researcher? And then the researcher wants to eventually create a spin-off, and the first thing that the university will ask is tons of money from the researcher. So the poor researcher that wants to start a company, the first thing is to find money to pay the university that, by the way, receive money from the government to support that technology. So things are not well. So there is things that the government needs to do with universities. There are things that it needs to do. Creating labs, and this co-labs is a good initiative. And then on the investment side, the government can create these co-investment funds. When I talk with governments, and I've helped several governments to establish co-investment funds and initiatives for angel investment, the first excuse the government, we don't have money. And I say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you didn't have money. Do you have grants to startups? Yes, we have one. Oh, we found money. So if you have money to the startups, why don't you take 10% of that money and you say, let's create a co-investment fund. The money will go to the startups as well. So you have the money. We found the money. So this is something that the governments need to do, and to try to create these co-investment schemes to mitigate the risk of investors as well. Not to put zero, but to reduce the risk. Because if the risk is reduced, the willingness of investors to invest in startups increases.
May I just make a comment there?
You don't know the casinos here? I tell you where they are.
Yes, I know. I think the goal, we have an interesting product in FCT, which is called Cátedras. We didn't make any decision about where the money should be given from the government. And this was thought by Mariano Gago, by this minister. It's a long product, it's not very much used. It works like this. FCT, so the government, the Portuguese government, provides 30%, as long as the researcher gets from private funds the other 70%. And if the researcher gets the funding, the FCT will never refuse the funding of its 30%. It's prestigious, and it leverages dramatically the public funds. So I think one of the goals of governments would to create incentives for private funds to come together with public funds, well, de-risking companies and actually accelerating the investment in real businesses that may fail, but are much more useful for society than gambling in the casino.
But putting money into problems doesn't solve the problem. That's which governments sometimes forget about it. So even if the government gives grants to entrepreneurs, if the entrepreneurs is not good, then the company will fail. I know a lot of grantpreneurs, so entrepreneurs addicted to grants, that completely fail because they focus on grant number 1, grant number 2, grant number 3. The track record of those companies is grant number 1, grant number 2, and they say this very proud. I got the grant number 1, grant number 2, grant number 3, grant number 4. But clients, 0. No client 1, no client 2, no client 3. They focus on grants, and this is one issue.
But talking on the risk on the side of policy makers, this morning you talk about other examples, very interesting examples, like the test beds, like the smart procurement. If you can also talk a little bit about that, I think it will be is also very interesting models that could be applied over here.
So one problem for companies that are much ahead of the time, so that they are building they are building technologies that can only be used in 5-10 years. For instance, flying cars, drone deliveries, this kind of stuff. There is no way for them, there is no legislation for them to test now. So how can they find investors if they are unable? It's forbidden by law for them to do tests. So one way that many governments do in different verticals is to create these regulatory sandboxes where the government waives licenses, waives a lot of bureaucracy and allows companies to test those technologies. And this is a fantastic way to attract talent and attract money as well, because these companies will be able to show to investors and to potential clients that the technology works. And for the government, will learn as well, because if the government is afraid that something may not be well developed, this is the perfect place to verify that as well. Test beds is basically centers where the entrepreneurs can come and test technologies in a real environment. And this is also another great way to show clients that it works, because if there is a place that the entrepreneurs can show, come and see how does it work, a client goes there, sees it works, and then places an order. And the entrepreneurs don't need money, they need clients. And if they don't have clients, then they need the money. So if the government can help them to have clients, then the government doesn't need to put money there. So it's much more cost effective to create test beds, allowing to lower the cost of trying technologies and this regulatory sandbox than just putting money. What should be the result of a government to put money in a startup that the startup cannot test the technology, cannot show to clients that the technology works? How is going to survive this startup? And you know, sometimes the startups think, oh, in 5 years, this will be the market. But I've seen startups waiting for 10, 15, 20 years and never happens the market.
You also talk about smart contracts. I think this is also another very good example.
Yeah, so smart procurement based on innovation. So governments are used to do the procurement based on price. Sometimes they put quality of companies. So when governments put, for instance, size of a company, basically that is a criteria. Basically, they are saying startups don't come. So the government should do some procurement for startups. How is a startup competing in terms of balance sheet or giving guarantees to the government for some kind of procurement? One way to do it very easy is, instead of giving a grant to a startup, the government says, imagine a startup that wants to do quality of the air analysis real time. So there is one way, is government gives $500,000 to the company, and it's okay. Another way is to say, okay, I give you 500,000, but you need to install this in all these buildings. So the startup, as a client, the government saves money. The startup can show to clients and says, oh, we won a contract with this big client, and attracts other clients. It's positive. But governments are sometimes just, they want to give money. So what can we do? They are grant addicted as well, giving grants to everyone. So we need to accept that.
Talking about the risking, but now on other perspective, talking about now about the entrepreneur. You wrote the book, right? Zero Startup Risk.
Zero Risk Startup.
Zero Risk Startup. So taking on account now the other perspective from the entrepreneur point of view, what are the main tips from this book that you give for entrepreneurs when they are launching their venture?
I think one thing we need to understand is that the large majority of the population that had an idea of business will not pursue it. In US, 61% of adults, 61% had a business idea. 92% of those never started the project, never started anyone. Here in China, as you know, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor that analyzes a lot of countries says that China is the country with the highest level of fear of failure. So this shows that the majority of potential entrepreneurs don't even start. and this is the tip of the iceberg is the entrepreneurs that start the companies, and we always look. I'm looking to also to the others, and understanding why they don't start. And it is clear, it's fear of failure, is the risk. So if we help entrepreneurs to reduce their risk to a level where they feel they are okay with the risk, then they will start the company and they will try.
But this comes also from culture, from education, right? There is a profound change also.
Yes, and it depends by region. There are bias, there are cultural bias, where, for instance, entrepreneurship is not well seen in some societies. People don't perceive entrepreneurs as something good. Yes, and that's one risk. So if someone belongs to that culture and he wants to start a business, there are several ways that he can do. But usually the excuse of entrepreneurs is, oh, I would like to start a company, but I don't have money. And I ask, okay, if I would get you an order of $1 million of a client, would you quit your job and start a company? Yes, of course I would quit. So just find that client and start your company. What prevents someone to start to look for a client while he's working for someone else? You are right. But I have the family. Yesterday in university, I was talking this. Do you want to talk the story? Do you want to talk? Okay, allow him to talk because he was there. It's better he talks. He has the microphone to do this more interactive. So tell the story.
But I do have a question before we proceed.
No. Now first you tell the story, then you have the right to.
But anyways, I think this has something to do with the culture. Yesterday we got have the knowledge and also introduced by Paula once again emphasize that in the Chinese culture. So we saw a chart displayed yesterday. So China, the country, has greatest the fear of a failure to start a business. But also, I can perceive some regional, differences across China. So the statistic about the whole China, but as far as I can perceive, my knowledge is that the northern part of China, like my hometown northern part, at least not including Guangdong province, the area, the people are even more conservative. So we are grown up in a Confucius society. So the traditional education is that you study hard, you listen to your boss. Right? Listen to your government, your teachers, and you did go to study, you go to college, get a high degree, and what's next? So usually we are not taught to be an entrepreneur, not a boss. So that's some way people feel you don't have other way to make a living, something like that. So when I was a kid, now things become a little bit better probably. But anyway, so. If you are successful in a traditional society, so we are taught first study hard, and then serve the country, serve the society. Number 3, the most important, be an official. If you are a government official, you go back to hometown. They feel so proud of you, big celebration or whatever. But even if you get a secondary, probably me, still privileged position because I PhD, I got a good degree, a good education professor, still well respected. But even if you are a very successful entrepreneur, you donate a lot of money to your hometown, build a school, library, etc. People say, oh, well, of course, welcome. But in their heart, probably, okay, you're just probably lucky, more lucky than us. Whatever. So this is psychology. I think it's still true in many places of China. So, but except Guangdong province. But in Guangdong province, in Cantonese, speaking region, especially like Chaoshan, where the hometown Chaoshan. So those people I learned. So they are very entrepreneurship. So they are willing to do whatever small businesses, start with a very small restaurant, a massage shop, whatever. So instead of just try to be employed even with a big bank or a big company or even university. So this is, I think there is a lot of cultural thing.
But he didn't tell the story.
No, he didn't tell. But I will tell the story. So in the book, I cover all the excuses that entrepreneurs have, or entrepreneurs that have, not to start a business. And the first one is no money. So I say, okay, but if you start a company without money, you don't need to make money. If you have clients, then they will make. Ah, yeah, okay. So this is one is removed. The second one is family. And yesterday we were there, and there was one student and say, when is better to start a company? Is when they are graduated immediately or after some years of experience? And I said it depends on the type of company. If you need more experience to manage the company or skills, then it's better you try to get those skills and experience before you start a company. But if the company that you want to start is a company that does not need special skills, and then why not after graduated? After you are graduated, because you don't have family, don't have responsibilities, and then the person, but he has a girlfriend. And this is an excuse. Family is one of the biggest excuse. And this is a perceived excuse. And I said, is the girlfriend here? And yes, it is. So I talked with the girlfriend in front of everyone and say, do you allow your boyfriend to, during his studies, to learn and to talk with potential clients about this? So you will not do any investment, you will not lose the money. The good advantage for you is that you have more time to talk with your girlfriends, and you don't spend so much time with your boyfriend. And if he's very successful, then he will be millionaire and he will buy a lot of houses, etc. By the way, you woman, you have the same right to be entrepreneur. You have the same opportunities, and this is not something that is only for male. This is for female as well. And she said yes. So that she allows him. So, but he was finding an excuse. Oh, my family. So, and these entrepreneurs, so people that say that they want to be entrepreneurs, but they do nothing, and they are full of excuses. And there is no excuse. I have never found an entrepreneur that with a valid excuse. There is one valid excuse, is that he doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. So look, I want to be a researcher. Fine, I want to work for the government. Great, no problem. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, please, there is no excuse. There is no excuse. Not money, not education, not cultural bias, nothing. There is always a way to make it. And buy the book, read the tips that I give.
But yes, you had a question that you wanted to...
So I think it's relevant to the current discussion. So because Paulo had traveled many places. I think he traveled also China region, like Shanghai, Hong Kong. And you are about to travel to New York, as I learned from Paulo. And again, great audience yesterday, great interactions. And some students asked, they were usually very shy, you know what I mean? So probably we still have some students who can start their business very early. So the one example I can give is that when I was teaching in South University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen, so some guys, they started maybe as early as you. I know you started your own business very early, like college, right? College, yes. But I had a couple of students who in Shenzhen, again in Canton, in Guangdong area, started their own business very early during their college years. So one particular example I can give is that in Shenzhen, when they were college students, they started up a consulting firm to help other clients to buy Bitcoin. This is about 8 or 9 years ago. So this is my personal example. But maybe there was some generational change about this culture towards entrepreneurship. So my question is, because you are traveling to US also, and you have been traveling to China probably many times, and here in Macau. One knowledge I learned from, so what's your prospect about Macau, entrepreneurship and unicorn?
I think Macau has some fantastic advantage because...
because just now, again, so excuse me, Paulo gave the example several times. This is at least the second time I saw his slides, seeing that Portugal unicorn 10, 9 incorporated in US, 1 in UK. But when will we have at least 1 in Macau or Hong Kong or Great China area? If not, so what's the what homework we have to do? So I know it's a challenging question. Probably you can come back next time. I mean, give us more thoughtful.
I think the countries should not pursue to have unicorns. I think it's not the right policy to pursue. The unicorns will happen naturally. So because what is the risk of just fostering unicorns is that there is a high risk of failure to achieve the unicorn, and you will support very small number of companies, and you will waste a lot of talent that probably will go to other regions, and in the end you get nothing. So I think these results of unicorns from Portugal is a result of a lot of policies with angels, with the VCs, with also support from the government and the universities as well, and this resulted in unicorns. But it's not the main goal is to create policies just to focus in terms of unicorns, because unicorns, some of the evaluations of unicorns are fake. Means fake. Why is fake? Because if you read the terms of investment of some of the investors, they have preferred shares, and preferred shares, sometimes with multiples, is not common stock. And this is a big difference. As I said, if you want to become a unicorn, tomorrow you can become a unicorn. You invest one share of 100,000 euros of equity, of $100,000, and you are a unicorn. You got the unicorn immediately. Tomorrow, it's administrative. So some of unicorns are fake. And if you see in the news, a lot of unicorns disappeared, first. Second, a lot of unicorns got super low valuations now. So this is another issue that is happening. But in terms of Macau, there are a lot of advantage of Macau, and I see a lot of potential. I think it would be great that there is an angel community here. There are a lot of businessmen, and one of the issues is, and one of the problems that we saw in Portugal and in many other countries is the people that have the money, they are not from the technological sector. So they didn't make money in the technological sector, as it in US. In US, you have a lot of investors that sold companies, they have a lot of money, they understand technology, so they are able to invest directly in startups. But here, as in Portugal as well, initially in the first years, the investors were coming from real estate, industry, and agriculture. So this poses a problem to invest in technology. So what did we do? So what we did is to find entrepreneurs, for instance, technology, that have technology for agriculture. And so we come to the businessman that has agriculture and say, look, here is a company that has robots to pick fruit. So you spend a lot of money with workers. Why don't you invest in this company of robots to pick the fruit? Because you understand the problem. And he said, yeah, I understand the problem, and I can put them in my place to work. So they see synergies. They see added value. The investor feels he can add value. He can take part in the dream. Another thing is real estate. There are tons of companies on real estate. For instance, one company that I mentored 1 year ago is a company that has a drone on the lifts. He puts the drone on the lifts, and he can survey the lift security and maintenance every week. So the drone flies, is permanent there, flies in the lift. What does it give? Reduces the cost for insurance, because the insurance has reports every week of the quality of the lift. Reduces the cost, reduces the stop of the lift, because sometimes they need some days to repair, etc. Reduces the damage in the lift. And an investor in real estate, someone that invests in real estate and understands real estate, understands this problem and will invest in this technology. So it's important to try to match investors with something where they can add value. About starting from school, I can give you my example. Before I entered in university, I studied IT engineering in FCT in Lisbon. I tried to create a company to sell wooden tubs to UK. So what did I do? I got catalogs of products and I took the plane, went to UK, knocked the doors and say, hey, I'm selling this. Do you want to buy? And some crazy buyers accept to buy from me. And I was super successful selling containers and containers of goods. What was my investment? A trip to UK. In the second year, I was in the university and I saw, oh, there are so many students here, brilliant students, much more brilliant than me. So in terms of IT, and this is a waste of talent. So I started a training company of IT. I employed all my colleagues to train IT in companies. So I started. What was my investment? Zero. I started. I just went to ask, hey, do you want to buy IT training? I have super experts, university students on top of the things. And people start believing me and they bought. So while they are in the university, it's possible to start businesses or at least to learn about the business to be ready to launch the business.
Thank you.
Going
Very
back-
nice. Yeah.
Going
So-
back,
Okay.
well, let's have it here a question. Thank you.
Hi, Paulo. Thank you for your answer. I was just wondering, in your personal experience, have you had any angel investors help you start your company?
I didn't have angel investors, but when I start trading these wooden tubs, etc., I needed to have knowledge about export terms called incon terms like
CIF, FOB.
CIF, FOB, all these free on board, etc. And I didn't know. So my mom was a secretary of BNU, the bank here, but in Portugal. She was in Portugal, secretary. And I asked my mom, look, I need a mentor on this area because I know nothing. I didn't know how to create a company even when I was 18 years old. So my mom found a person in the bank that was my mentor and explained me everything. So I didn't have an angel investor because first I didn't need money on that one, but I had the mentors. All my life, I always found mentors, and there is always someone there to support us and asks for some advice. You just need to look for it.
Any other question from the stage? If not, yeah. Oh, we have.
I have one.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the discussion. At the last part, you mentioned about perceived value, but we started the conversation with perceived risk. I also wanted to know, what are you gonna? The book you're about to publish on May the 7th is focused on what type of entrepreneurs, where were they living, or is it a global perspective? So the balance between perceived risk and perceived value, I think, is a trade-off that we talk about here. And if you look at the entrepreneurs, because we focus on the Portuguese-speaking countries, and I think it's really important to understand what we can actually bring to this kind of entrepreneurship, because we see some of the countries in Africa trying to help each other. So see if we can place this into the context of Portuguese-speaking countries. For me, it would be interesting. And I think some other people here would benefit as well.
Look, in the book, I analyze the risk in different perspectives, and the perceived risk and the real risk is one of the topics, because this affects two stakeholders. One, the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur doesn't move to move on creating the startup and creating the business because the perceived risk that entrepreneur sees is huge. So he takes a decision based on the perceived risk. So if he comes to the real risk, sometimes he finds, oh, there is not real risk, so I can do it. And from the investor's perspective as well. So the investors take the decision on the perceived risk and not on the real risk. So one of the first things that entrepreneurs need to do when they talk to investors is not to assume the investors are super experts on that field, because many times the investors are not aware of all the aspects of that business area. So the entrepreneur needs to align the knowledge of the investor with the reality. Just doing this is reduces a lot of risk. It comes from the perceived risk to the real risk. Coming to the perceived value or the real value, the first thing is, when you talk about valuations of companies, there is something that I can tell. Any business plan. So how do the Big Four, and there are some people from the consulting market here, I'm sorry to say, but any business plan is wrong. Any business plan is wrong. Because it will be better, the reality will be better or worse. So how these Big Four, Big Five that are here do fantastic valuations, very nice, beautiful, with gold lines, everything very perfect, based on the wrong input. So the input, the business plan, is wrong. They do evaluation. So and you know, another thing is Excel. You can massage the Excel. You just do a little bit, it gives you the money, the number you want. What number you want? 20 million next year? No problem, just put 20 million and it works. Excel accepts everything. So the problem is not the business plan. The problem of the valuation is that entrepreneur promise a business plan, then the consulting company comes and takes the valuation based on that business plan, but if the business plan doesn't happen, the entrepreneur wants the risk to be on the investor side. And that is the problem, where entrepreneurs do not agree with the valuation. So how to do that? There are several ways to do that, to mitigate that risk. One, which is very common in US and becoming more common in Europe, is to do convertible notes. So is to say, okay, we don't know which evaluation now of the company. You invest money in our company, and the valuation will be set in 1 year and a half or 2 years with VCs, etc. And we will give you a discount of 20%. So this is more normal terms. So you don't discuss valuation at that moment. That's a good way for entrepreneurs to mitigate that risk, and for investors as well, not to discuss valuation. Another thing, and the best way to do it, is to say, look, I, as an entrepreneur, think that the business plan will be this, and based on this, I think the valuation should be that. Do you agree? If this business plan happens, do you agree on the valuation? And probably more than 90% will agree. But then you need to say, okay, if the reality of the business is below the business plan, then we need to adjust the valuation. But if it's better, then we need to adjust upwards as well. And you will agree, the investors will agree as well. So nobody will be upset, because the reality, what happens today, is someone will be upset. So entrepreneur wants to marry investor, but someone will be upset because the business plan will not happen. So if the business plan, and I've seen this many times, if the business plan is much better, the reality is much above the business plan, what do the entrepreneur says? Look, investor, you, when you negotiated with me, you were very, very tough. I was not experienced. I was accepting, but I saw that you took advantage of my lack of knowledge. You need to give me more shares now that we are very successful. This is what they will do. If it is worse, the investor will come to the entrepreneur and say, you entrepreneur, you promised that you would do $10 million in the second year. You are doing 1 million. Why did you lie to me? Why did you lie to me? This is not nice what you have done to me. You need to give me more shares. Someone will be upset. So why are we doing a marriage with announced divorce that one of them will be angry? And that's where people do not agree. 55% of the investments that angels did not agree to invest is because the valuation was very, very high. In terms of the Macau and the possibility of involving Portugal and other countries, I think startups that can have the main market in China, Portuguese startups, have a huge advantage to have investors from Macau and to have a platform in Macau. Startups that see the Portuguese-speaking countries like Brazil, Portugal, Angola, Africa, etc., as a market, they can see Macau as a platform to access those markets as well. So Macau is in a fantastic position. But it's very difficult for a Portuguese investor to invest in a company where they speak mainly Chinese. It's very, very difficult. So the ideal scenario is to create a community of angel investors here in Macau, some speaking Chinese as well, and to have Portuguese community that exists already in Portugal. Brazil, there is a huge community of angel investors, and we try to syndicate the deals. This is the best thing. But without having angel investors here, it's very, very difficult for us outside to start investing in a Chinese company because we don't speak Chinese and we cannot speak. And if we cannot speak, we cannot mentor, we cannot edit value, we cannot talk with the entrepreneur. And this is something that it would be very important to have here, the angel community.
Going back to technology and innovation, I mean, there is a lot of sectors, right? Quantum computing, high frequency networks, AI, a lot of biotechnology. So in the US, the venture capital, usually a lot of them are very specialized in some of these industries. I would like to know how is it works in business angels. Do we also have business angels specialized in some sectors, or is if
in Europe, we have several angel networks, so networks of angels that are specialized on clean tech, for instance, or on femtech. For instance, there is a huge network in London of women supporting femtech, so technology for women. And this is something that exists. And of course, there are a lot of advantage because you have a lot of investors with deep knowledge in one sector. And I think this is also possible to create here in Macau or in this region network of angels specialized in some kind of technologies.
And the deal flow. So the deal flow is the projects, right? The technology, the innovation, the startups. Where do you get the deal flow? Where you usually business angels go to source these innovative startups?
When there are angel community, when there is a huge angel community in one country, they have websites, and there are immediately sites where they put all the angel investors that can invest, and the entrepreneurs can get there. There are international platforms like AngelList or Gus.com from my friend David Rose that wrote the foreword to my book. David Rose was the founder of New York Angels, and he's the founder of Gus.com. So there are a lot of platforms where you can get the deal flow. I get a lot of deal flow for instance, from LinkedIn. I received a lot of entrepreneurs that approach me, or through a lot of syndicates and people that know me, and they send me the deal flow. But once they are established, the angels in the country or in the region, it's quite easy to find out how do they come, and people will know. For instance, in the university, if you know that there is an angel network in Macau, I'm sure José Paulo will go talk with this network. But if there is no network, then it's more difficult.
José Paulo, your experience, right? ISCTE in Portugal has been a pioneer beginning on 2000, right? You bring the MIT program to ISCTE. I don't know if that was the start, but if you can tell also from the academic perspective, you know, the experience of what happened in Portugal, and it would be interesting.
Portugal made a big effort in financing a cooperation with leading universities. So MIT with the Despande Center, which was, we lack in Portugal and in many places something that the Americans have a lot, which is the successful alumni. The former students will give back to the university. And in MIT, there was a very interesting experience, and we worked a lot with him. Charles Cooney was a professor, but he was an investor as well. And he created a company, he is now a billionaire because he is an engineer for developing new medicines. And when he was 30, he was approached by this fund, the Despande Center, that later led to the creation of the Despande Center. And they said they invited him to create a series of new drugs in the areas of his expertise. He was a bioengineer. And he said, well, at the time, it was very difficult for me to create a company because I wanted to be a researcher, not a business person. And 30 years later, he sold that for 40 billion or something like that, and he had 10% of the company. And we asked him, how did you feel? Well, now it's also difficult for me to leave the company. But this is an ecosystem that really works. So I think we did some progress in that. So we have a collaboration with MIT, with Carnegie Mellon, and UT Austin, Texas. And the one that worked better was Carnegie Mellon. And for instance, Fidzai had lots of contacts and took a lot of inspiration from that. So I think we at the university here in Macau, and Macau has an emerging educational system in higher education. Lots of progress was made since the creation of the Southeast Asia University. And I think we have the possibility of collaborating in this and creating more, asking our students permission to their girlfriends to launch, or to the boyfriends to launch businesses. Yes, we do have a big role in that. We created two centers at ISCTE, which are AUDAX, which is Latin word for entrepreneur, and BGI, Building Global Innovators.
Which are incubator. AUDAX is the incubator of
and we are, and these two entities that are lively and existing are very active in helping new ventures to create. Yeah, AUDAX and the BGI. Yes.
Can you just, for those who maybe very quickly, the incubator, because it has a very central place in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, if you can summarize in one sentence.
Incubators are very useful because they have companies together which really interact with each other. And as you were saying, some become clients and suppliers to each other. So it's an ecosystem that is very, very favorable. We just, the management, it's like managing a condominium, will provide some help in accounting, in marketing, in finance, and so on, access, and legal issues like how to launch a company, these kind of things, like your mom did to you. So that's.
Let's open the questions to the floor. Yeah. So we are there. Already at the microphone.
Good afternoon. I'm a local entrepreneur doing business with a Portuguese-speaking country for over 20 or so years. I'm an ex-banker. I worked for banks for 20 years, and I turned to an entrepreneur. I was living in New York City, and then I came back to Macau to start my own company. The problem in Macau is that, you see, that although Macau is a platform between China and the Portuguese-speaking countries, the government is not doing much to support this platform. The reason is that Macau lacks an export credit insurance scheme. It means that all the export we do with the African countries, we have to assume our own risk. Because like in Hong Kong, again, one of the biggest trading ports in the world, they have the export insurance scheme that supports exporters to export to all over the world. But Macau is impossible to cover our risk. Even in China, they don't accept cover from Macau companies. I have been negotiating with the government for over 20 years to start something, the insurance scheme to protect our interests. Because we have a lot of orders from the African countries. I ask for motorcycle, electrical appliances, medical equipment, a lot of varieties. But the problem is that all the time I ask for at my own risk. So this is a problem, you see. Another problem is that, you see, that there are not too many entrepreneurs in Macau, too small Macau. And then the problem is that there are all very few people really speak Portuguese doing business with the African countries. There's a lot of opportunities. But the point is that, you see, we are small entrepreneurs. We want to do business, but without an insurance scheme, you see, we cannot do much. Thank you very much.
Do you want to comment on that?
I don't know the details. Look, in all countries there are problems with regulation and maybe then why don't you in Hong Kong there is no problem in Hong Kong. Okay, then you create in Hong Kong. You say made in Hong Kong, and you have the part here in Macau that has the knowledge or whatever, and you export the product from Hong Kong. If this is the solution, but I understand that this is an issue. But you are an entrepreneur. You need to find out the solution to the problem.
We have here some people from finance sector that perhaps could also provide some help in that.
Maybe we are going to open now the Q&A to the floor. We already also come we also have limited time, right? So if there are some questions over there.
Excuse me, just I have a final question about education. So yesterday, I think many students asked not only this question, but very many. So because we are now, at least now, professor working in a university in the city of Macau. So in your opinion, this about what education is lacking of in terms of nurturing entrepreneurship, in terms of curricular design and educational mission, whatever. So we had been discussion with Bolo and our dean Jose a lot for this, but business, especially in the context of business school, and sometimes the value or the vision of a business people and the real practice is not along with the university level. The agenda, especially if the university engineering, experimental science driven college. So what's your
I think in terms of education, there are a lot of things that governments can do. And it starts from when the students go to the education, very early, when they go to the school, very early stage. So I think it's important that at the very early stage, the students understand that the future is in their hands, and that the future will be what they will want to be, and that they can fight for, and they should have some creativity. And I run a program in Cascais with 10,000 students per year, where from early ages, where they are encouraged to think about business, etc. For instance, one of the issues in the books in the school in early stage is the book says John, usually is a man, not a woman, I don't know why, but John wants to buy a football ball, and the football ball costs $20. He has 10% discount. What will be the price of the football ball? But usually the books don't say John is an entrepreneur. He wants to increase the sales to the clients, to attract more clients, and he's selling the balls for $20, and he's now doing a discount to attract more customers. So putting the examples in the books of entrepreneurs allows the students to start thinking about the entrepreneurs. In terms of the universities, jumping because we don't have so much time, because you mentioned about, Jose mentioned about these alumni. There are two fantastic examples in Europe, which is ESAD and IESE in Spain, which they have two fantastic alumni network that support students to create their own companies and invest. They have two angel networks, ESAD BAN and IESE BAN, which are angel investors in investing in students from the universities. So this is another thing that universities can do and mitigate the risk.
Roger, question.
I have a question for the university. So in Macau, there's we have 3 incubators, inclusive of Hengqin. Then we also have the 9 to 9 contest for startups. The news is writing a lot about startups. The government is asking for more startups, more entrepreneurs. There's a lot of vibe in the news, for sure. At least that's what I read. Hengqin is happening. I think Hengqin would be a great sandbox as a playground if things are moving. So the integration of Hengqin and Macau is coming to act in a real situation. Now, what is missing is a syndicate of angels. Because I think there's a lot of ideas. The government is pushing for startups. There's a lot of young people who want to start up. And there's help, I think. There are mentors available. But when it comes to money, there is no syndicate here. I think it's a great idea. And this morning we heard of someone on the stage, Mr. Ung, he was himself an angel investor, but we never know that he is. And it's a big one. So there may be more. But who takes the initiative? Who should take the initiative to start a syndicate? Is that the government? Is it the incubator center? Is it one angel who starts a syndicate? But I think since you are from Macau, I would like to ask a question to you.
I can start, but I think
I think he says that do you want to start the syndicate? Is right? My English is not very good, but I understood that he wants
There's
you
many
to start.
business faculties as well, and all of them have. All the students like to have startup. I was myself in another university in a speech from someone who was presenting from Alibaba, and that person asked the class, "So who likes to? What are you going to do afterwards when you graduate?" And everyone said, "Startup." That's the young generation.
Paulo has a much bigger experience, of course, and it's his business. But let me just say this. In Europe, and this is your association, the European Business Angel Network, that they estimate that there are 10 business angels for each registered business angel. So many business angels don't know that they are business angels, but they act as business angels. What you mentioned is very important. It's a syndicate and an organization of business angels is much more effective and can play a very important role. But of course, it's up to you. What I can tell from the university perspective is that we are open to help as we can, and of course, to learn also and to get some direction about what we should do to go into that direction. But the initiative has to come from the business angels themselves. We are here to help and, of course, to build the ecosystem together. But you have done this all your life, so.
Yeah, it's the angel syndicates or angel networks, or it needs to come from the angel side, or in some cases, there are some people that are not angels, but they want to manage this angel network, and they bring angel investors and say, "Hey, I want to aggregate this angel community, and I want to manage it." So, but there is always a need of a leader, and one of the issues that many governments face is that they want to talk with angels, but they don't know who to talk to. So if there is someone that takes the leadership and takes the lead, I think this would be great. Here in Macau, probably it would be good to also to have some Chinese-speaking people, because this would help to create a stronger network. But it doesn't mean that there is only one network. You can create 2 or 3 networks. You can create one network just for hospitality sector, for instance, hospitality, leisure, casinos, this kind of stuff, and maybe there is another network just for technology, for instance.
I'm not sure it's if I have time. Quick question. Everyone talks about AI, so the question to you is simple. How AI can help us de-risk a startup?
Ask ChatGPT.
No. Buy my book, chapter 21.
Good.
No, there are a lot of ways that you can de-risk the startups. First, you just using AI, it saves a lot of money in many aspects. Just for instance, just to create the logo of a company, to create a website, to create blogs, to create to find the clients. There is a lot of ways that it can help the company. And also AI. I believe in the future, each angel will have AI agent, which will gather information in the market about the startups, which startups to look up to, and which startups to invest. And when they receive a request of funding, this AI agent will suggest to the investor to invest or not. And so I think the decisions in the future will be much quicker, and it will be much faster to fundraise. And I think in many syndicates today, it's possible to fundraise in 1 hour billions. In 1 hour, it's possible to fundraise billions.
There is a story of this startup in Portugal that was all generated by AI, that was printing the T-shirts and making, I don't know if you hear about this story, and create a lot of buzz.
There is the first startup that the story about ChatGPTs. There is one guy in US. He said to ChatGPT, create me a company that where I invest $100 and make me a millionaire. And so ChatGPT suggested several things, and he implemented. And he was telling people live, oh, so ChatGPT told me this, and I'm doing this, and the progress. The company closed 2 months after. So ChatGPT will not save entrepreneurs, will not save the companies from being a failure or being success. As a great idea will not save entrepreneurs from failure as well. So ChatGPT and all AI technologies are great, but there is always a human understanding and a human factor to make it work well. Because if ChatGPT and other technologies would be great, so every one of us will ask ChatGPT today, what kind of business should I do? And the ChatGPT probably will tell us all the same. And tomorrow there will be 100 companies of the same, and they will go all bankrupt.
Yes.
Because the context of AI is the context of their data sets, and that data set is based usually is not up to date, and they can suggest the same thing for many people.
Great. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are going to close here this session. I would like to first thank Paulo Andrés, for coming here in Macau and being here today and share your experience. And also, if you want to know more, Zero Startup.
Zero risk startup.
Zero risk startup.
You are creating problems because you are sending people to the wrong side. Zero risk startup in Amazon.
There's another book called like this. So yeah, sorry. So in Amazon, you can already buy starting the 6th of
Zero risk startup.
Okay. So thank you very much for this sharing session. Also, José Paulo, thank you very much for being here with us and sharing a little bit also what has been done in Portugal and also what you have done in the academia side. I would like also to thank, and I'm sorry at the beginning I forgot to mention, I would like to thank the Fundação Rui Cunha. Thank you so much for inviting us today and being able for us to share this topic about startups, innovation, and business angels, which is a very important part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I want also to thank Artisan Group because they also, being sponsor this venue of Paulo José here in Macau, and also I would like to thank the Economic and Technological Bureau of Macau as well, which is a big supporter of the 929 Challenge, which is a program that is managed by the Association of Entrepreneurship and Innovation of Portuguese-speaking countries here in Macau. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, and see you next time.